He built a tech empire in Boston, but never rebuilt the life he left behind. Lucas Daniels, 48, is a self-made millionaire, a CEO known for his laser focus and impenetrable exterior. But when he pulls over one afternoon near a quiet elementary school, everything changes. Two boys, identical, maybe 9 years old, stand on the sidewalk selling handmade bracelets. Nothing unusual, until one of them hands Lucas a bracelet that makes his heart stop. Dangling from it? A heart-shaped charm, etched with the initials L.E. It's the exact charm he gave his high school sweetheart before prom night, 30 years ago. The girl who vanished without goodbye. The girl he never forgot. Suddenly, the past isn't just knocking, it's staring him in the face with two sets of eyes that look a little too familiar. Who are these boys? Why do they carry a memory only one person could have passed down? And, most importantly, is the legacy of a summer love about to change his life forever? This isn't just a story about success. It's about the moments we thought were lost, and the people who kept them alive. Don't miss this emotional journey of rediscovery, truth, and love. Hit subscribe for more heartfelt stories that could change how you see family, forever. Lucas Daniels had never believed in fate. Algorithms? Yes. Data models? Absolutely. But fate? That was a word people used to explain what they couldn't control, and Lucas had spent his entire life refusing to be at the mercy of anything unpredictable. That belief had built him a tech empire. At 48, Lucas was the CEO of a billion-dollar AI firm in Boston, known for revolutionizing how data powered everything from city traffic to cancer diagnostics. A man with a corner office view of the Charles River, a calendar booked 6 months in advance, and a staff that rarely saw him blink, much less crack a smile. But something about this morning felt different. Maybe it was the way the fall leaves swirled low across the pavement, like they were chasing time itself. Maybe it was the way the sun hit the hood of his car just as he pulled up beside the elementary school playground, casting shadows that danced like memories. He wasn't even supposed to be here. His driver had taken a detour because of construction, and now Lucas found himself idling near the side street beside Hawthorne Elementary, a school he'd never heard of. His gaze drifted to the sidewalk. Two boys stood at a folding card table. Their matching sandy brown hair caught the breeze in the same exact rhythm, maybe 8 or 9 years old, identical down to the denim jackets and navy sneakers. The twins were selling handmade bracelets, their tiny hands carefully laying out each piece on a velvet-lined tray. Lucas might have driven away without a second glance, until he saw the charm. It was subtle. Hanging from the center of a braided string, amidst the colorful beads, was a small silver heart, scratched and faded with time, but unmistakable. The initials carved into it, L.E. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. He knew that charm. He had given it to someone 30 years ago. He rolled down his window. "Hey," he called out, his voice tentative, raw. "How much for the bracelet with the heart charm?" The taller twin looked up. "This one?" he asked, holding up the bracelet. Lucas nodded, eyes locked on it like it might disappear. $5, the boy replied, stepping closer. Lucas reached for his wallet, but his hands trembled slightly. "Where did you get it?" he asked gently. "The heart charm. It's old." The boy shrugged. "Our mom had a whole box of charms. She let us use some for the bracelets. That one's special. She said it was from someone important." Lucas managed a small, strangled laugh. "Yeah, I guess it was." He handed the boy a crisp 20. "Keep the change." The boys looked at each other, confused but grateful. The smaller one, quieter, tilted his head. "You okay, mister? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I might have," Lucas murmured, gripping the bracelet like it held the key to every door he thought had long been closed. As the boys turned back to their table, Lucas sat frozen behind the wheel, staring at the charm in his hand. The past he'd buried beneath deadlines and acquisitions had clawed its way back to the surface, with one small, unmistakable piece of silver, Emily. Her name rushed back like a breath he'd forgotten how to take. He hadn't said it aloud in years, not since she transferred schools after their senior prom. One summer, that was all they'd had. One wild, unforgettable, laugh until you can't breathe, kiss until the sun comes up summer. He had given her that charm the night they danced beneath the string lights on the high school gym floor. She had promised to wear it always. And then she was gone. No warning, no explanation. Just vanished. Lucas blinked hard, trying to pull himself back into the present. He looked at the boys again, how they moved in sync, how their eyes, clear and steady, mirrored something hauntingly familiar. There was only one person who could have passed that charm down. "James," Lucas called out, startling his driver who'd been checking messages from the front seat. "Yes, sir." "Cancel my morning meetings. I need to find out where those boys live." James turned, blinking. "Sir?" Lucas didn't take his eyes off the charm. "I think I just found something I lost a long time ago." And maybe, just maybe, he'd found someone too. Lucas Daniels couldn't remember the last time he'd ignored his schedule. Canceling meetings was something other people did. People with time to waste, people without boards to answer to. But as his car pulled away from the curb, the silver charm in his hand anchored him more powerfully than any deadline ever had. "James," Lucas said, voice low but resolute, "I need you to find out who those boys are, their names, where they live, everything." His driver gave a measured nod through the rearview mirror. "Understood, sir." "Discreetly?" "Yes, and quickly." Lucas sat back, closing his fist around the bracelet as if afraid it might vanish. The memory of Emily's smile flickered behind his eyes, vivid and uninvited. 30 years hadn't dulled it. He could still picture her standing under the bleachers in that lavender dress, holding his hand and tracing her thumb over the engraved charm he'd saved 2 weeks' worth of paychecks to buy. He had never seen that charm again, until today. The rest of the day blurred into static. Lucas walked through boardrooms and status updates like a man in a dream. Numbers swam across presentation slides. Executives spoke in polished tones he'd once found invigorating, but now barely registered. Every moment was laced with distraction, haunted by 2 pairs of matching eyes that felt impossibly familiar. By nightfall, James had results. "They live in a duplex just outside Cambridge," James reported, handing Lucas a manila envelope. "Rent's paid by a woman named Emily Carver. She works night shifts at a local clinic. 2 boys, listed as Taylor and Jordan Carver, 9 years old." Lucas sat very still. "Emily Carver?" he repeated slowly. James hesitated. "I pulled some records. She was formerly Emily Larson, your high school girlfriend." The confirmation felt like a punch to the chest. He had known. The moment he'd seen that charm, the way those boys had looked at him, mirroring his own younger face back to him, how could it not be? Lucas opened the folder. 2 school photos stared up at him, Taylor and Jordan. In one, Taylor was mid-laugh, his teeth a little crooked but his confidence palpable. In the other, Jordan stared straight into the camera, solemn and observant. Identical freckles, identical cheekbones, identical icy blue eyes. His eyes. Lucas pushed back from his desk, standing abruptly and pacing toward the window. Boston's skyline glimmered in the darkness, a city pulsing with ambition and money. It had given him everything. Everything but answers. He turned back to James. "Where does she work?" "Newton General. Night nurse. Records say she works the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift 5 nights a week. 5 nights a week. Lucas ran a hand over his face, absorbing the weight of it. Emily was out there, working graveyard shifts to raise 2 boys, his boys, while he had been building empires and erasing her memory. Or trying to. "You okay, sir?" James asked carefully. Lucas glanced at him, his voice rough. "No, but I will be." The next evening, he drove himself to the duplex. No assistants, no entourage, just him, standing alone under the soft glow of a broken porch light, staring at a modest front door with peeling blue paint. He knocked. The sound was louder than he intended. For a moment, nothing happened. Then footsteps. A woman's voice inside, muffled and hurried. The door opened, and there she was, Emily. Her hair was shorter now, but still chestnut brown, still curled softly at the ends. Her eyes, green as ever, widened the moment she saw him. She froze in the doorway, a grocery bag balanced on her hip. "Lucas," she breathed, nearly dropping the bag. What are you doing here?" He took a step back, words caught in his throat. I saw the boys today. The bracelets. One of them had a charm I gave you." Emily's face went pale. "I need to talk to you," Lucas added quickly. "Please, I'm not here to cause trouble. I need to know." Emily looked torn, eyes scanning him like she wasn't sure if he was real. Then, from somewhere inside, a small voice echoed, "Mom? Who is it?" Taylor stepped into view behind her, followed closely by Jordan. Both boys blinked up at Lucas, confused. Emily turned back to them. "Go finish your homework, okay?" Taylor gave Lucas a long, unblinking look before nodding and disappearing down the hall. When she turned back, Emily's jaw was set. "I get off at 7 a.m. Meet me at Perkins' Diner on 4th. I won't talk about this here, not in front of them." Lucas nodded slowly. "Thank you." She closed the door without another word. Back in his car, Lucas sat in silence. The bracelet still rested on the console, the charm glinting faintly under the streetlight. 9 years, 2 sons, and a woman he'd once planned forever with, now standing behind a door he wasn't sure he had the right to knock on again. But tomorrow, he would walk through it anyway. The diner was mostly empty when Lucas arrived just after 6:30 a.m. The early morning sun filtered through dusty blinds, casting gold-tinted shadows across cracked vinyl booths and the worn linoleum floor. A waitress with a tired smile nodded toward a corner booth. "She's already here." Lucas's breath caught as he turned. Emily sat with her hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug. She wore blue scrubs and a gray fleece jacket zipped halfway. Her hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail, and her eyes, those same green eyes, watched him warily as he approached. "Hey," he said softly. She didn't smile. "You're early." "I didn't sleep." Emily gave a faint nod. "Me neither." He slid into the booth across from her, unsure where to start. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken memories and what-ifs. She broke it first. "So, you saw the charm." Lucas nodded, slowly pulling it from his coat pocket and laying it gently on the table between them. "I gave this to you the night before prom. You remember?" Her lips tightened into something between a smile and a sigh. "Of course I remember. You slipped it onto my wrist in the parking lot behind the gym. Told me you'd never forget me. I meant it." "I know," she whispered, then looked away. Lucas exhaled shakily. "Emily. Those boys, are they mine?" Emily's eyes met his again, this time without flinching. "Yes." The word landed like thunder in his chest. He felt winded, stunned, and yet not surprised. Not really. Somewhere deep inside, he'd known. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "You never told me. I would have—" "I did try," Emily interrupted, her voice sharper now. You left for MIT 2 weeks after graduation. You changed numbers. Your mom—" She caught herself, shaking her head. "Your assistant, or whoever was screening your calls, told me not to bother you with drama, that you were starting your future and I was not part of the plan." Lucas's face darkened with shame. "That wasn't me, I swear." "I know that now," she said softly. "But back then, I was 19, scared, pregnant, alone." Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "Why didn't you push harder? Write me? Show up?" "I did write. Letters. Emails. I didn't want to show up and be the crazy girl who claimed the Golden Boy's babies were his. I figured if you wanted to be found, you would have stayed reachable." He couldn't argue. She had every reason to believe he'd moved on. He had. Or thought he had. Lucas swallowed. "And now? What's their life like?" Emily's shoulders sank, exhaustion bleeding through her posture. "We manage. I work nights at Newton General. The boys go to school during the day. We live quiet. They don't know who you are, Lucas. I told them their dad wasn't around, that it didn't mean he didn't care." Lucas blinked against the sudden burn in his eyes. "You told them I cared?" "They deserve to believe they're loved," she said simply. "And I figured maybe one day it would be true." Emotion twisted through his gut. "They look like me." "They do," she agreed. "Especially when they argue. Taylor has your stubborn streak, and Jordan gets quiet when he's upset, just like you did when your dad used to yell." He smiled, then sobered. "Do they know about the charm?" "No," she said. "They found it in a box of old things I kept. Taylor turned it into a bracelet charm without even knowing what it was." Lucas stared down at the heart-shaped piece, its engraving still faintly visible. L.E. "I never thought I'd see this again," he said, voice low. "It's like a piece of my past just walked back into my life." Emily's voice softened. "It didn't just walk back, Lucas. It never left. You just weren't looking." He reached across the table, hesitated, then gently touched her hand. She didn't pull away. "I want to know them," he said. "Please. I'm not asking for anything from you, but I missed 9 years of their lives. I don't want to miss more." Emily looked down at his hand, then back into his eyes. For the first time since he'd arrived, something in her gaze softened. "They've been asking questions since yesterday, wondering who you were. I told them I'd explain soon. I'd like to be the one to tell them, or at least be there when they find out." Another silence passed, but it felt lighter now. "They're off school today," Emily said. "Teacher planning day. If you're serious, come with me when I pick them up from Ruth's. They stay with her during my shifts." Lucas blinked. "You'd let me?" "I'm not doing it for you," she said, standing and tossing a few bills on the table. "I'm doing it for them." She started toward the door, pausing only once. "Oh," she added, glancing over her shoulder, "they like ice cream, even in the winter." Lucas smiled despite the heaviness in his chest. Noted, and for the first time in years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he was walking toward something real. The street leading to Ruth's modest 3-story home was lined with brittle oak trees and cracked sidewalks, quiet, unassuming, and miles away from Lucas Daniels' usual world of glass towers and boardrooms. But as his car pulled up to the curb behind Emily's beat-up Honda, Lucas felt something stir in him. Not discomfort, not fear, something warmer, anticipation, maybe, or something even closer to hope. Emily stepped out first, her keys jangling as she unlocked the gate and led the way. She paused before ringing the doorbell, glancing back at him. "You sure you're ready for this?" He hesitated. "Honestly, no, but I want to be here." A faint smile crossed her lips before she turned and knocked. The door opened moments later to reveal a woman in her late 60s, gray curls tucked behind her ears, apron smeared with what looked like peanut butter and something green, maybe paint, maybe avocado. "Emily," the woman greeted warmly, then noticed Lucas. And you are? This is Lucas, Emily said gently. An old friend. He's hoping to spend some time with the boys. Ruth's eyes narrowed with subtle scrutiny, the kind that could strip a man to the bone. Lucas shifted uncomfortably, but held her gaze. You're the charm, she said at last, not unkindly. Lucas blinked. Excuse me? The charm. The heart with the initials. You gave it to Emily, and one of the boys turned it into a bracelet. I know that charm. I helped her pack when she left town. Lucas didn't know what to say. Ruth nodded once, then stepped aside. They're in the backyard. I just made grilled cheese if anyone's hungry. They followed her through a narrow hallway that smelled like cinnamon and fabric softener. Photos lined the walls. School portraits, messy finger paintings, old snapshots of happier times. Lucas's breath caught as he stepped through the sliding glass door into the backyard. There they were. 2 boys, one with a basketball, the other curled up in a patio chair with a chapter book almost too big for his lap. A third, crouched in the grass, was meticulously trying to coax a worm into a jar. The fourth sat cross-legged on the porch, assembling what looked like a keychain out of yarn and beads. All 4 turned when they heard the door. Emily stepped forward. Hey, guys! Mom! The boy with the basketball beamed, bouncing it once before dropping it. You're back early. The others looked up, some more cautiously than others. I brought someone with me today, she said gently. An old friend. This is Lucas. Silence. All 4 boys stared. Not rudely, but curiously. Intently. Taylor, Lucas remembered the name, was the first to speak. You're the guy who bought the bracelet. Lucas nodded, heart pounding. Yes, I saw something on it that meant a lot to me. Like what? Jordan, the boy with the book, asked skeptically. The charm, Lucas said softly. It was something I gave your mom a long time ago, when we were your age. The boys exchanged glances. Taylor tilted his head. Were you her boyfriend? Lucas laughed awkwardly. Yeah, I was. A very long time ago. No one said anything. Then the boy on the porch, Jude, he thought, asked, Are you rich? Emily raised a brow. Jude? What? He shrugged. He's got fancy shoes. Lucas grinned. Fair point. Yeah, I guess you could say I've done okay, but that's not why I'm here. Then why are you? Came a small voice from the boy still coaxing the worm. Logan. Lucas looked at Emily, then back to the boys. Because I missed a lot, more than I ever meant to, and I want to get to know you, if that's okay. The boys were silent for a long moment. Taylor finally spoke, stepping forward. You can come shoot hoops with me, he said, tossing the ball toward Lucas, but I'm not going easy on you. Lucas caught it with a soft laugh. I wouldn't expect you to. From the porch, Jude called out, You gonna help me make keychains too? You owe me. I'm missing cartoons for this. Deal, Lucas said, genuinely. And, just like that, the heaviness lifted. The boys slowly let their guard down, curiosity outweighing suspicion. Logan finally held up his jar. Can you help me find more worms? Only if you don't name them all Kevin again, Emily said, rolling her eyes. Lucas knelt beside Logan, peering into the jar. That one does look like a Kevin, though. Logan grinned. By the time the sun began to set, Lucas had grass stains on his knees, yarn tangled around his wrist, and a paper plate of half-eaten grilled cheese on his lap. He sat back on the porch beside Emily as the boys raced each other across the yard, shouts and laughter echoing. You're good with them, she said softly. I'm trying, he murmured. She nodded, watching them. They're good boys. I can see that. She turned to him, eyes serious. Don't make promises you can't keep, Lucas. They've already been let down more times than they deserve. He looked at her earnestly. I'm not going anywhere. She didn't respond right, away, but when she finally did, her voice was almost a whisper. Then I guess we'll see. Emily closed the screen door behind her as the boys dashed inside, laughing and arguing over who had won their impromptu foot race. She lingered on the porch, arms folded tightly across her chest, her eyes flickering between the empty swing set and the man still sitting on her steps. Lucas hadn't moved. He sat quietly, elbows resting on his knees, watching the fading light spill over the backyard like honey. There was a gentleness in his silence that surprised her. It was the same stillness he used to have during high school sunsets, back when they lay on his hood after football games and talked about everything and nothing. "You're quieter than I remember," she said softly. Lucas glanced up, offering a tired smile. "A lot of noise fills your head when you're building something that never stops growing." Emily walked over, lowering herself onto the step beside him. "You built a kingdom. I thought I was building a future," he murmured. "Turns out I was just building walls." She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Why did you stop writing?" Lucas exhaled slowly. "You disappeared. You left town without a word." "I had to," she said, voice sharp with a sudden edge. "The day after graduation, everything fell apart. My mom moved to Arizona. I had nowhere to go." "You had me," he said quietly. She looked away. "Not the way I needed." Silence hung between them. Then Lucas reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. He held it out without speaking. Emily hesitated before taking it. Her breath caught as she unwrapped the fragile object. It was a faded photo, creased from years of folding and unfolding. The two of them at the senior prom, her in that soft lavender dress, him in a too-big tux with a crooked bow tie. Her head rested on his shoulder, eyes closed in trust. "You kept this?" she whispered. "I had a box," he said. "One box I never unpacked. It stayed sealed through 6 moves, 3 cities, and 2 board promotions. That photo was on top." Emily's hands trembled slightly as she refolded the paper. "You gave me love in one summer," she murmured, almost to herself. Lucas turned toward her. "What?" She swallowed hard. "Nothing. No, Emily." His voice deepened. "Say it again." Her eyes brimmed with something she didn't want to name. She looked at him, long and quiet. "You gave me love in one summer," she said softly, "and I gave you a legacy." Lucas's world tilted. It wasn't a metaphor, it wasn't poetry, it was the truth. "The boys?" he asked, his voice cracking with realization. "They're mine?" Emily nodded, barely. "It was the summer before college. I didn't know for sure until months after you left, and by then I'd already been pulled halfway across the country with nothing but a part-time job and prenatal vitamins. What was I going to do? Call you during your internship in New York and say, 'Hey, remember prom night?'" Lucas sat in stunned silence. "I tried," she continued, her voice steady but raw. "I drafted letters, typed out emails. I even showed up at your office once, but the receptionist wouldn't let me pass the lobby, and by then you were untouchable. A man on the cover of Forbes. Emily." He shook his head slowly. "I would have been there." She gave him a long, skeptical look. "You say that now." He didn't argue. He couldn't. "I never wanted anything from you," she added. "Not a cent. That's why I never filed anything. They have my last name. I raised them, Lucas. Me and Ruth and a lot of late nights and microwave dinners." Lucas was quiet for a long time before speaking. "I can't go back and fix what I missed. But if you'll let me, I want to show up now." Emily didn't respond. He turned toward her, eyes earnest. "I want to know them, not just for a day or a weekend. I want to be the dad who shows up at their school plays, who learns the difference between Minecraft and Roblox. I want to learn how to braid keychains and fix science projects with duct tape. I want to be there when they lose their first tooth and their first basketball game. I missed the first 9 years, but maybe, just maybe, I can be there for the next 9. Emily looked at him, her eyes unreadable. You think that's something you just decide? Like buying a startup or acquiring a new asset? No, he admitted. I think it's something I earn, day by day, mistake by mistake. She stared at him for a long time. Then she sighed, standing slowly. You can start by helping with homework. Lucas blinked. Now? You said you wanted to show up. She nodded toward the house. Taylor's struggling with fractions. And if you mess it up, I swear he'll never forgive you. A shaky laugh escaped him as he stood. I've faced billion-dollar negotiations. How hard can fractions be? She raised a brow. You'll see. As they stepped back inside, the warmth of the home wrapped around him like something almost familiar. He wasn't sure what this road would look like or where it would lead. But for the first time in years, Lucas Daniels wasn't chasing a future. He was walking into one. Lucas Daniels stared at the math worksheet like it was a legal document written in Martian. Taylor sat across from him at the kitchen table, pencil tapping rhythmically against the wood. His brow furrowed in frustration as he whispered, Mom just carries the number sometimes, but my teacher says that's not real math. Lucas chuckled under his breath, nervously scratching the back of his neck. Well, your teacher's not entirely wrong, but your mom's probably just doing mental math faster than she can explain. I don't get it, Taylor muttered, deflated. Lucas leaned in. Hey, it's okay. We'll figure it out together. You know, I wasn't great at this stuff either, but you know what helped me? Taylor's eyes lifted, wary. What? Lucas tore a paper napkin in half and slid the pieces in front of him. Pizza. I imagined everything as pizza slices. You've got 4 friends and 1 pizza cut into 8 slices. Each friend gets how many slices? Taylor paused. 2? Exactly. 2 out of 8, which is the same as 1/4? Lucas grinned. Boom. That's fractions. Pizza style. Across the room, Jamie peeked around the corner with quiet amusement. Emily leaned against the doorway with her arms crossed, watching her boys and the man she used to know with an expression that softened, then tensed when Lucas looked up. You okay? He asked. She nodded quickly, glancing toward the time. It's getting late. I usually take them out for ice cream on Thursdays if we can swing it. A little tradition. Lucas stood. Let me take you all. My treat. Emily raised an eyebrow. You sure? I missed 9 years of Thursdays. I owe a few cones. 20 minutes later, the small neighborhood ice cream shop buzzed with the hum of neon lights and laughter. Lucas followed the boys to the counter, where they debated toppings like miniature senators in committee. Eventually, Taylor ordered mint chocolate chip with gummy bears, while Jamie insisted on vanilla with pretzels and fudge. Emily stood beside Lucas in line, her smile tight but sincere. They loved this place. I used to bring them when I had a good night shift. Other weeks we'd just pretend at home with frozen yogurt and old sprinkles. Lucas glanced at her, his heart squeezing. You did a good job. She didn't answer. When they sat down, Lucas balancing a towering cone of butter pecan, the boys leaned across the table with their usual unfiltered energy. Mom says you were her boyfriend in high school, Jamie said between spoonfuls of ice cream. Is that true? Emily shot him a look. Jamie. Lucas smiled. Yeah, that's true. Your mom and I were kind of a big deal back then. Did you dance? Taylor asked. Like slow dance? Lucas laughed. At prom? Oh yeah, your mom wore a lavender dress and I couldn't stop stepping on her toes. Emily smirked. You were terrible at it. Taylor leaned in, curious. Did you kiss? Lucas opened his mouth, then blinked. Okay. Emily cut in, flustered. We're not talking about that over ice cream. The boys burst into laughter. Lucas leaned back in his seat, taking in the small, ordinary chaos. He hadn't realized how much he craved this. Shared laughter over dessert, teasing stories, the easy rhythm of family, a rhythm he'd never known he was missing until now. "I was thinking," he said gently, catching Emily's eye, "maybe I could pick them up sometime, after school, or for one of these Thursday traditions." Emily was quiet for a moment. "I don't know, Lucas. It's still new. They're still adjusting." "I get that," he said softly, "but I'm not going anywhere. I don't just want to drop in like a weekend uncle." Her eyes searched his face. "You don't get to rush into their lives because you finally feel ready." "I'm not rushing," he said. "I'm asking. For time. For a chance." Jamie looked between them. "Can we go to the museum next time?" Taylor added, "Or the science center?" Lucas looked at Emily. "Can I?" She hesitated, visibly wrestling with herself. Then finally, with a small nod, she said, "One Saturday. Pick them up at 10. Be on time." Lucas's heart lifted. "I will be." As they finished their cones and bundled up to leave, Taylor slipped his hand into Lucas's without saying a word. Lucas looked down, startled by the tiny gesture, so casual yet monumental. He squeezed gently, wordlessly promising more than any legal agreement ever could. They stepped outside into the crisp Boston night. The boys chased each other toward the car, voices echoing down the quiet street. Emily lingered beside Lucas. "They'll ask questions, you know, about why you weren't around." Lucas nodded. "I'll answer them. Every single one." She studied him one last time, then opened the car door. "Then you'd better start learning how to explain hard things." He watched them drive away, heart full and aching all at once. The past couldn't be rewritten, but maybe, just maybe, the future still had chapters he could write with them. And he would start with Saturday, 10 a.m., sharp. Saturday came sooner than Lucas expected. The morning air was brisk, the kind that reminded him of early autumn football games in high school, when the world still felt simple and the future hadn't yet hardened into sharp corners. He checked his watch again, 9:47 a.m. He was already parked across the street from Emily's modest townhouse, a bouquet of sunflowers in the passenger seat and 2 museum tickets tucked in his wallet. He hadn't slept well, playing out the day in his mind, hoping for smiles, bracing for silence. At exactly 9:59, the front door opened. Jamie and Taylor came bounding out with backpacks slung over their shoulders and wide, excited grins. Emily followed, arms crossed, her posture reserved. Lucas stepped out of the car, smiling. "Morning, gentlemen. Are we still going to the science center?" Jamie called. Lucas held up the tickets. "Confirmed." Emily approached slowly. "They're excited. Try to keep it low-key. They don't do well with big crowds." Lucas nodded seriously. "I've got it. We'll keep things easy." She leaned down and adjusted Jamie's jacket collar, then glanced up at Lucas. "They know you're their father." Lucas blinked. "You told them?" they asked. She said quietly, "They've been asking since that bracelet. I figured if you're going to be around, they deserve honesty." He looked at the boys now standing by the car, trying not to look like they were eavesdropping. "Thank you," he said deeply. Emily nodded once. "Be patient with their questions. Some of them might hurt." Lucas met her eyes. "I'll answer every one." The museum was a hit. Lucas had underestimated just how curious his sons were. Taylor dragged him through an exhibit on robotic engineering, asking questions Lucas had to Google under the table. Jamie became obsessed with a virtual space simulator, climbing into the cockpit and pretending to be a NASA pilot for nearly an hour. At lunch, they sat at a small table in the museum cafe, unwrapping sandwiches and sipping juice boxes. "So," Taylor asked suddenly, "where were you when we were born?" Lucas choked slightly on his iced tea. Jamie tilted his head, his tone less confrontational, more curious. "Did you know about us? Did you know about Mom?" Lucas took a breath. "No, I didn't. Not until a couple weeks ago." "Would you have stayed if you did?" Taylor asked bluntly. Lucas didn't look away. Yes, I would have. I didn't know she was pregnant, and that's not her fault either. Did you love her? Jamie asked. Lucas smiled sadly. I did, very much, and I still care about her. We were kids when we were together, but she meant everything to me. Jamie looked satisfied. Taylor seemed less convinced, but nodded slowly. They didn't speak for a moment. Then Taylor whispered, "I'm glad you came back." Lucas reached across the table, placing a gentle hand over his son's. "Me too, buddy. More than you know." But not every heart in the family was softening. That evening, as Lucas dropped the boys back off, he saw a black SUV parked outside the house. A man with broad shoulders and graying hair standing on the porch. He was holding a briefcase and arguing with Emily in hushed tones. Lucas's stomach tightened. "Who's that?" Jamie asked from the back seat. Lucas answered truthfully, "I'm not sure." As they approached, Emily turned and her eyes widened slightly in surprise. "You're back early." "Just wanted to walk them to the door." The man turned, sizing Lucas up with the sharp gaze of someone used to courtroom dominance. "You must be the father." Lucas nodded slowly. "Lucas Daniels." The man extended his hand stiffly. "Richard Morgan, Emily's stepfather. I'm also filing for custody of the boys." The words hit Lucas like a slap. "What?" he asked, stunned. Emily closed her eyes. "He's serious." "They need stability," Richard said coldly. "Structure, not a man who suddenly wants to play father after nearly a decade of absence." Lucas's voice dropped, controlled but simmering. "I didn't even know they existed. I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." Richard pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase. "Then I suggest you get a lawyer, because I'm not letting those boys get caught in another Daniels disaster. Emily's already lost enough." Lucas looked at Emily. "You're letting him do this?" "I don't want this," she said, clearly torn. "But he's family. He helped when I had nothing. He's scared I'll get hurt again." Lucas shook his head. "This isn't about fear. This is about control." "Maybe," she said softly, "but it's his petition, not mine." Jamie and Taylor stood silently behind Lucas, wide-eyed and confused. "Come on," Richard said. "Let's go inside, boys." Lucas watched helplessly as his sons hesitated, then followed Emily inside, casting backward glances at him. He stood there for a long moment after the door closed, fists clenched, the sting of powerlessness burning in his chest. Then he got in his car, and pulled out his phone. "David," he said as soon as his lawyer answered, "I need to talk custody, tonight." The past had taken enough from him. He wouldn't let it steal his sons, too. Lucas Daniels had always considered himself a man of composure. Years in the tech industry had taught him how to handle pressure, respond to crises, and keep a calm, steady hand, even in the face of chaos. But nothing had prepared him for the slow unraveling of his newly discovered family, or the looming threat of losing the very sons he'd only just begun to know. The legal documents Richard Morgan delivered were real, and they were aggressive. The petition framed Lucas as an opportunistic figure seeking publicity, a man who had abandoned his responsibilities and now wanted to impose disruption into a stable home environment. It was a gross misrepresentation, but it still hit hard. "Stable?" Lucas muttered to his attorney David over the phone as he paced his office late that Sunday night. "They're living paycheck to paycheck, split between her night shifts and his rigid control." David sighed, his tone professional but cautious. "We'll respond, and we'll do it thoroughly. But, Lucas, the court is going to want proof of sustained involvement. History, not just recent enthusiasm." Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "That's the thing. I don't have history with them. I was robbed of it. We'll focus on intentions. Actions, since you've learned. The effort. We build your credibility one moment at a time." "Thanks, David," Lucas said, quieter now. I can't lose them. Not after finding them. But as if the legal petition weren't enough, Monday morning brought another blow. The moment Lucas entered the office, his assistant, Monique, looked up from her desk with wide eyes. "Sir, you should see this." On her tablet was a headline already going viral. "Bracelet of the Past. CEO, Lucas Daniels, accused of orchestrating reunion for publicity stunt." The article had everything. Old high school yearbook photos, a snapshot of Lucas holding the charm bracelet in front of the boys' table, and even a speculative quote from an unnamed source close to Emily, claiming the entire encounter had been staged. Lucas clicked the article open, his face darkening. "This is garbage." "There's worse," Monique said grimly, handing him a printed comment thread. Hundreds of responses, some supportive, many skeptical, accusing him of leveraging a sentimental story for corporate gain. And then he saw it. A repost of the original prom night photo. Him and Emily, 20-something years ago, smiling under fairy lights, the charm bracelet visible on her wrist. Underneath it, someone had written, "Funny how this resurfaced now that Legacy AI is under scrutiny for its latest privacy policy." The implications were clear. Someone was using his personal life to paint him as manipulative and deceitful, possibly to damage his credibility, just as Legacy AI was preparing a sensitive product launch. Lucas stormed into his office, slamming the door behind him. He sat at his desk, staring at nothing for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and called Emily. She answered on the third ring, her voice guarded. "Lucas? Did you see the article?" A long pause. "Yes. I've been trying to keep the boys away from screens today. They're sensitive to stuff like this." "I swear I had nothing to do with it," he said earnestly, "and I would never exploit them. Or you." "I know that," she replied softly. "But the timing, the photo, it does look manufactured." Lucas winced. "It wasn't. That charm, Emily, I hadn't seen it in 30 years. Another pause, this one heavy with memory. "I kept it," she said finally. "Not because I was holding on to hope, but because it mattered, even after everything." His throat tightened. "You gave me love in one summer," he murmured, repeating her words from the letter he hadn't yet dared to acknowledge aloud. "And you gave me a legacy," she exhaled shakily. "You read it." "I've read it a dozen times." "Then you know why I kept quiet all these years." "I do, and I hate how much sense it makes." She laughed faintly, then went quiet. "I want to fix this, Emily. Not for the cameras, not for headlines, for them. For you. For us, maybe. In time." "I believe you, Lucas," she whispered. "But right now, they're scared. And this court petition—" "I'll fight it," he said firmly. "But I won't do it alone. Tell me how to support you." There was silence on the other end. Then, gently, "Let's meet tomorrow, after my shift. You can come by and talk. Just you, no lawyers." "I'll be there," he promised. After they hung up, Lucas leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen with its toxic headlines and twisted truths. They could spin their stories. He was about to write a new one. Lucas arrived at Emily's modest duplex just past 6 p.m., a brown paper bag of Thai food in one hand and nerves buzzing beneath the surface. He'd traded his blazer for a sweater and jeans, trying to appear less like a CEO and more like someone her boys could picture as part of their real life. Emily opened the door in scrubs, fatigue visible under her eyes, but her expression softened when she saw the bag. "You remembered I like green curry. You said it once, 17 years ago." He replied with a faint smile. "I don't forget the good stuff." She stepped aside to let him in. "The boys are at their friend's house for a movie night. I thought we could actually talk." The living room was clean, but lived in. Textbooks on the coffee table, a pair of sneakers by the door, a science fair poster leaning against the couch. Lucas felt a wave of warmth, tinged with something deeper, regret, maybe, or longing for a life he'd missed. They sat on the floor, takeout boxes between them, silence falling comfortably for a few minutes as they ate. "I hated seeing your name trending," Emily said quietly, even more so when I realized the boys might come across it. Lucas nodded solemnly. "They didn't, right?" "Not yet, but it's only a matter of time. Their classmates are getting phones now." He took a breath. "That's part of what I wanted to talk to you about. The smear campaign. I'm almost certain it's being pushed by a rival firm, someone trying to tank the legacy AI launch. But the worst part is, they use the photo, the charm." She looked down at her food, her voice distant. "I didn't think anyone would care about something like that. Just a piece of old silver." "It's not just silver," Lucas said gently. "It was the first thing I ever gave someone I loved, and I never gave another." Her eyes flicked up to meet his, sharp and searching. "You were 19. We barely knew who we were. But you knew exactly who you were, Emily. You always did." She stared at him for a long moment, then rose and disappeared down the hall. Lucas remained seated, confused, until she returned with a small tin box in her hand. She held it out to him. "I was going to give this to you someday, or maybe never. Depends on how brave I felt." Inside was a letter, its pages yellowed slightly at the edges. He unfolded it with careful fingers. "Lucas, if you're reading this, it means I'm stronger than my pride. That somehow I got past the fear of not being heard. Or worse, being rejected. You gave me love in one summer. I gave you a legacy. 2 boys who have your eyes, your fire, and your wild curiosity about how the world works. I didn't tell you because you were already flying. You had wings I didn't want to clip with responsibility or resentment. But I hope, if they ever meet you, you'll see them not as proof of a past mistake, but as the most beautiful what if that ever came true. Love always, Emily." Lucas blinked rapidly as he reached the bottom of the page, the silence between them pulsing with emotion. "I wrote that after they were born," Emily said softly, her voice trembling. "I never mailed it. Never had the courage." He folded the letter back and looked at her, eyes glistening. "Emily, you carried all of this alone, and you shouldn't have had to." She exhaled, her voice tinged with tired honesty. "I had help, my sister, a neighbor or two, but yes, it's been hard." Lucas leaned forward, the space between them shrinking. "I want to do this with you. Whatever happens with the court or the press, I want to show up, not for PR, not for redemption, just for them, and for you, if you'll let me." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Start with them. Earn their trust. We'll see where the rest of it goes." Lucas nodded, swallowing past the lump in his throat. "Deal." As he left that night, the sky overhead was crisp and speckled with stars. He clutched the letter tightly in his coat pocket, its words echoing louder than any headline or courtroom statement. That letter, unmailed, unsent but full of quiet truth, wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a promise. And Lucas Daniels had every intention of living up to it. The morning of the event, Lucas stood in the center of the Boston Tech Pavilion, heart thudding beneath his button-down shirt. The wide atrium buzzed with volunteers and vendors, all preparing for what the local news had dubbed a groundbreaking community initiative. The banner hanging above the main stage read, "Legacy of Love, Empowering Young Minds Through Technology." It had started as an impulsive idea during a sleepless night, something to reclaim the narrative after the charm photo had gone viral and the rumors swirled. But it had evolved into something bigger. Lucas had poured not just money, but heart into the project. A space for children from underserved neighborhoods to learn coding, engineering, and innovation, mentored by the very people building the future. Today's showcase was its unveiling, and front and center were the very boys who had unknowingly sparked it all. Tyler and Jonah stood near a booth labeled smart bracelets built by kids. Both wore matching blue hoodies with the Legacy of Love logo on the back. Their eyes lit up each time a curious adult approached to ask how their bracelets worked, embedded with microchips to track steps, heart rate, or even send preset alerts to a parent's phone. Lucas watched from a distance, heart swelling. He didn't see them as tech prodigies or poster boys for a campaign. He saw them as his sons, the ones who carried Emily's wisdom and his curiosity in every fiber of their being. Emily appeared at his side, dressed in simple jeans and a gray blazer, her hair loosely tied back. "I still can't believe you pulled this off in 3 weeks," she said, her voice edged with amazement. Lucas smiled, eyes never leaving the boys. "It wasn't just me. The team went above and beyond. Once I told them the why, everyone showed up." She looked at him, quietly moved. "You turned a mess into a mission, and somehow you made it about more than just them, or us." Lucas turned to her, his voice gentle. "Because it is. Every kid deserves the tools to dream big, and every parent deserves the chance to be part of that dream, even if they're late to the starting line." The crowd gathered near the stage as the program began. A city councilwoman spoke first, followed by the school superintendent. Then, unexpectedly, the MC called Lucas up. He hesitated briefly, then walked onto the stage, applause rising. Behind him, the screen displayed a slideshow of children engaged in workshops, coding on tablets, building robotic arms, experimenting with circuitry. Lucas stepped to the mic. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice clear but laced with emotion. "Legacy of Love wasn't born from a strategic plan. It came from a moment of unexpected recognition, from a bracelet, a charm, and a pair of eyes that looked a lot like mine." Soft murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Today isn't about me," he continued. "It's about second chances. It's about realizing that the past doesn't have to define your future. That love, even if it gets lost for a while, can still find its way back, if we let it." He paused, eyes falling briefly on Emily, then on Tyler and Jonah, who were now watching with rapt attention. "I named this initiative after what I was given without even knowing it. A legacy born from one summer of love that became 2 lives, 2 boys, full of promise. And today, I get to honor them by making sure they, and kids like them, have everything they need to shape the world." When he stepped down, Emily was waiting. "That was honest," she said softly, "and brave." Lucas gave a modest shrug. They deserved to hear the truth. Tyler and Jonah ran up moments later, excitement bubbling. "Dad, someone from MIT said they want to see our code," Tyler exclaimed. Jonah beamed. "And the mayor said our bracelets are market disruptive. What does that mean?" Lucas laughed, crouching to meet them at eye level. "It means you're brilliant, and you're changing the game." Jonah leaned in suddenly, wrapping his arms around Lucas's neck. Tyler followed, hugging them both. Lucas closed his eyes, holding on a little tighter than necessary. Later, as the event wound down and parents ushered their children out with bags of flyers and kits, Lucas remained behind with Emily and the boys. "This whole thing," she said quietly, "you didn't have to go this far." Lucas looked at her, voice thick. "I did. Because this, us, it's not a campaign. It's real. And I'm in. However long it takes to prove that to you, I'm not going anywhere." Emily studied him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then maybe we can figure it out together." As they gathered their things and walked out under the fading golden light of late afternoon, Tyler pulled a small bracelet from his hoodie pocket. It wasn't one of the digital ones, just simple beads and thread. He handed it to Lucas. "We made you one, too. Me and Jonah. Check the charm." Lucas turned the bracelet over, L, E, and T, and J. One family. Forever. For the first time in years, Lucas Daniels felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The courtroom was quiet, too quiet for Lucas's racing heart. He sat at the edge of a stiff wooden bench, fingers laced tightly, as if his grip alone could keep him steady. The family court's beige walls, scuffed by years of battles like his, seemed to close in around him. He stole a glance at Emily, seated a few feet away with her hands folded in her lap, her face unreadable but calm. Too calm. And then there were Tyler and Jonah, sitting between a social worker and their court-appointed advocate, dressed in neatly ironed shirts and slacks, their identical profiles solemn as they looked at the judge. Lucas had never seen them so quiet. No bouncing knees, no whispered jokes, just stillness. Judge Harrington adjusted his glasses, scanning the papers before him. His voice, when it finally came, was deliberate. "This is not a decision taken lightly. The court has reviewed extensive documentation, including financial records, character testimonials, and educational impact assessments. But none of that outweighs the well-being and expressed desires of the children involved." Lucas exhaled slowly, a tremble in his chest. "The boys, Tyler and Jonah, have expressed a desire to maintain a relationship with both their mother and their father, Mr. Lucas Daniels." His heart paused. The court recognizes that while Mr. Daniels has only recently discovered his paternity, his conduct since that revelation reflects a clear and ongoing commitment to the boy's emotional, educational, and physical well-being. Emily reached out, subtly, under the bench, and her fingers brushed his. Lucas turned slightly toward her, their eyes meeting in quiet acknowledgement. "Therefore," the judge continued, "I am granting shared custody, with physical custody remaining primarily with Ms. Emily Hart. Mr. Daniels will have joint legal custody, as well as scheduled visitations and decision-making authority regarding the children's health and education." Tyler turned to Jonah with wide eyes, and both boys broke into relieved smiles that Lucas would carry in his heart for the rest of his life. The judge wasn't finished. "Additionally, the court finds no basis for the grandfather's petition to assume full guardianship. That motion is hereby denied." A muffled grunt came from across the aisle, where Raymond Hart, Emily's father, sat stony-faced. Lucas didn't even look his way. He had nothing left to prove to that man. "Court is adjourned," Judge Harrington announced with a final gavel tap. The tension in the room broke like a snapped string. Lucas stood, a little unsteady, and before he could reach them, the boys rushed forward. Tyler got to him first, wrapping his arms around his waist. Jonah followed, hugging him tightly from the side. "You're not going anywhere, right?" Tyler asked, his voice muffled against Lucas's shirt. "Never again," Lucas whispered, bending to hold them both, his voice shaking. "You're stuck with me now." Emily stepped up beside them, her expression softer than he'd ever seen it. "They've been asking about your place," she said gently, "about what their room would look like." Lucas smiled, a lump rising in his throat. "I already started clearing out the office. It's gonna need bunk beds and a science station." Jonah's eyes lit up. "Can we decorate it with LED strips? Tyler wants a coating wall." "Anything you want," Lucas said. "It's your home, too." As they walked out into the bright Boston afternoon, sunlight pouring over the courthouse steps, a silence settled between them, not heavy, but full. Full of everything left to build, everything still to understand. Lucas knew they weren't magically a family just because a judge had signed a decree. They would become one slowly, choice by choice, love layered over time. Outside, a reporter lingered near the courthouse sidewalk holding a microphone. A cameraman stood beside her, already rolling. "Mr. Daniels," she called, "care to comment on today's ruling?" Lucas turned, shielding the boy slightly with his frame. "I think the story that matters isn't mine," he said carefully. "It's about two boys who never asked for attention, only for someone to show up and stay. That's what I plan to do." He looked at Emily, who nodded approvingly, and they ushered the boys toward their waiting car. That night, back at his loft, Lucas opened a drawer he hadn't touched in weeks. Inside lay a letter, folded neatly in a weathered envelope, the paper worn from being read and reread. Emily had given it to him after the judge's decision, saying she'd written it years ago but never had the courage to send it. He unfolded it slowly, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Lucas, you gave me love in one summer. I gave you a legacy. I didn't tell you not because I was angry or afraid, but because I knew if you came back, I wanted it to be because your heart led you, not your guilt. If you're reading this now, maybe that moment has come. The boys will always carry you in them, your curiosity, your stubbornness, your fire. But what they need more than your name is your presence. Emily." Lucas closed his eyes, clutching the letter to his chest. For the first time in nearly 30 years, he didn't feel like he was chasing success. He felt like he had finally arrived at home. The sun dipped low over Boston Harbor, casting golden ribbons across the water that shimmered like hope itself. Lucas stood at the edge of his rooftop deck, watching two figures race each other around the perimeter. Tyler was ahead by half a step, but Jonah's laughter made it clear. He didn't mind losing when the finish line was home. "Dinner in 10!" Emily called from the kitchen, her voice light and steady. Lucas turned, soaking in the sound of it, the kind of sound he once believed he'd never hear in this space. His loft, once sleek and sterile, now radiated warmth. Art projects adorned the fridge. A makeshift STEM lab cluttered one corner of the living room, and on the wall above the stairs a hand-painted canvas read, "Daniel's House of Ideas." Jonah jogged up beside him, breathless but beaming. "Guess what?" Lucas raised an eyebrow. "What?" "We finished your bracelet." Lucas smiled. "You did?" Tyler joined them, pulling something from his pocket. It was a simple woven cord in navy and silver, knotted carefully at the ends. But what caught his eye, what stole his breath, was the charm. A smooth silver heart, engraved with 4 letters, L, E, and T, and J. He blinked, throat tightening. "You remembered." "Of course we did," Tyler said proudly. "We know what the L and E stand for, but we added T and J one family." "Forever," Jonah finished, slipping the bracelet onto Lucas's wrist and tightening the knot gently. Lucas looked down at it, stunned by how much emotion such a small piece of metal could hold. "You know," he said slowly, his voice catching, "this might be the most important thing I've ever owned." They stood there in silence for a moment, letting it sink in. Inside, the smell of garlic bread drifted out, and Emily peeked through the open door. "You boys coming in, or should I eat all the lasagna myself?" Tyler and Jonah exchanged a look and sprinted inside, nearly colliding at the threshold. Lucas chuckled, following them in, heart full to bursting. Dinner was a noisy, joyful mess. Lucas spilled sauce on his shirt, trying to serve seconds. Jonah told a rambling story about a science experiment gone wrong. Tyler insisted on showing his new math trick with spaghetti noodles. And Emily, she just watched them all, her eyes soft, a quiet smile resting on her lips. After dinner, they piled onto the couch to watch a movie. The boys nestled between their parents, a tangle of limbs and popcorn and blankets. Somewhere between the first act and the second, Tyler fell asleep, his head on Lucas's shoulder. Jonah followed soon after, curled into Emily's side. Lucas looked over at her. "Remember when we were those kids? The ones who thought love had to happen on schedule?" Emily met his gaze, brushing Jonah's hair back gently. "I remember thinking we had one summer, and now we have this." Lucas reached across, lacing his fingers with hers over the sleeping boys. "I don't care what I missed. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. But inside that loft, the Rio constellations were already shining, written in moments, whispered in laughter, held in the rhythm of two boys breathing in sleep. Later that night, after tucking the twins into their new bunk beds they had picked out together complete with glow-in-the-dark galaxy sheets, Lucas stepped into the kitchen. Emily was there, sipping tea, leaning against the counter like she had 1,000 times in his memories. She looked up as he entered. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "Better than okay. I think this is the life I never knew I was waiting for." She tilted her head. "You still wear that CEO face when you say things like that?" Lucas smirked. "What face?" "The one that says you're already planning something." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "I might be." She opened it, unfolding the paper inside. Her eyes widened. "This is," she breathed, reading the letterhead. "A scholarship fund," Lucas said. "For kids who make things. Code, build, create. I called it the Legacy of Love Initiative." Emily's throat tightened as she stared at the paper. "Lucas?" "It's in their honor. In yours too. Because what you built when I wasn't looking, that's the kind of legacy I want to carry forward." Tears shimmered in her eyes. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. He closed the distance between them and wrapped his arms around her. For a long moment, they just stood there, a heartbeat of peace in a life that had known far too many storms. From the hallway came a small voice. "Dad?" Lucas turned to see Jonah standing barefoot, rubbing one eye. "Can you check under my bed again, just in case?" Lucas grinned, scooping him up effortlessly. "Absolutely." Emily followed behind as they returned to the boys' room. Lucas crouched beside the bed, making a big show of looking under it. "No monsters," he announced dramatically. "Just one very brave kid and his brother who drools in his sleep." Tyler groaned from the top bunk. "I heard that." Jonah giggled, snuggling into his blanket. As Lucas stood to turn off the light, Jonah whispered, "I'm glad you bought that bracelet." Lucas paused at the door. "Me too, buddy." He looked over his shoulder once more, committing the scene to memory. A bracelet, a charm, a chance encounter at a street corner, and a family, finally whole. The end.